Hello, I'm Waterstones Children's Laureate Joseph Coelho, and I love poetry, and I think you can love poetry too. Today we are in a very special place, the Hints Hall of the Natural History Museum. I've been visiting this wonderful, magical place ever since I was a kid. When I was 16, I was even lucky enough to do 2 weeks of work experience right here. The museum is a glorious repository of information, displays, and scientific facts, all about the natural world. And today we are going to write a poem dedicated to the museum. Here in the Hints Hall, we get a little taste of all the wonderful things you can find in the galleries and corridors of the museum. There are displays about sea life, about mammals, mini beasts, plant life, and even rocks and stones. This really is a museum of wonder. And that wonder hits you as soon as you walk in, as you are presented with the huge skeleton of Hope the whale. And this gives me an idea for a poem. Dive into the Museum of Wonder, where whales swim in the air, where fish of all sizes float over the ground, where you can't help but stop and stare. Swing into the Museum of Wonder, marvel at the mammals in cases, look at the splendor of their coats, study the beauty of their faces. Creep into the Museum of Wonder, where there are trunks of giant trees and massive fronds of seaweed that dance in the ocean's breeze. Fly into the Museum of Wonder, where wonders whiz behind its door. Discover facts about the natural world. Let your imagination soar. You may have noticed that the first lines of each of the verses of that poem start with the words dive, swing, creep, and fly. All verbs that I associate with the movements of different animals: diving penguins, swinging monkeys, creeping insects, and flying birds. Each verse refers to the museum as the Museum of Wonder. I wonder if you can use those starting lines to describe a museum you know. Maybe you have visited the Natural History Museum here in London and can remember some of the sights you have seen here. Or you could use this video for inspiration. Maybe there is another museum you know. It doesn't have to be a natural history museum, because of course all museums enable us to think and to wonder. And if you have never been to a museum, then maybe your poem could be a museum of imagination or a museum of you. What things would you find in the museum of you? Would there be a display of games, consoles, maybe an area dedicated to your wardrobe and the different things you like to wear? Maybe a display of all the wise things you have ever said. You can make your poem about any museum you like, but to get you going, start off by copying the first line of each of my verses. If you want to change those lines too, you can, but it might initially help to have a starting point. The poem does not have to rhyme. Remember, rhyme is just a tool we use when we want, if we want. Remember, this is your poem, and you, of course, as always, are the boss. I will put the beginning lines of each verse up on the screen for you to copy down. Pause the screen and take your time to write the poem out. When you are done, you can unpause for more. How did you do? Did you write about the Natural History Museum or another museum you know? Or did you create a museum of you? Oh, that's the poetry power-up sound, which means it's time for an extra challenge for your poems. I have an editing challenge for you this week. Once you have written your poem with its 4 verses, I want you to put it aside and, without looking, write it out again, but from memory, feeling free to change anything you want. The reason I'm asking you to do this is because you will probably find it easier to remember your favorite parts of the poem. The bits you don't remember so well are likely not to be your favorite parts, and might be parts that could be made even stronger with a bit of a change. Do not worry about being able to remember the whole poem. Get down as much as you can. And if you can't remember a bit, make it up. Once done, compare the two poems. How do you feel about the first poem? Now this new version exists. Could you copy it out a third time or even a fourth time from memory? Does it get better each time? Good luck and happy editing.